Hey everyone, this is Russell again. Welcome to day number 8. Now today, we're going to talk about starting your very own soap opera, which I'm sure most of you guys are super excited about. But what I mean by that is not so much writing your own soap opera, but we're going to be introducing a soap opera with your audience and the attractive character. Okay. Now, the first time I learned this concept, I learned it from a guy named Andre Chaperone. He's got a really good product called Auto Response Madness, which I recommend. He goes into a lot more detail and shows tons of examples of this in action that you can model. But the core overall philosophy is not too difficult to understand, and I want to show you guys how to implement this because if you do it the right way, it'll make this attractive character stuff we talked about yesterday actually make sense. So when somebody comes in and they fill out your squeeze page, and they start getting your emails, it'll instantly bond that person with the attractive character. Okay, so what happens is, because typically what's going to happen is the first email that they get, they're going to read. And if you leave something memorable with them, something that's exciting, something that kind of hooks them, then guess what? They're going to suddenly open email number 2 because they want to find out what's happening next and what's happening next. Whereas if your first email is boring, you completely lost that person and they're never coming back. Okay, and so these first few emails is our goal with that is to introduce the attractive character and to hook them into your story as quick as possible. Okay, so I'm going to kind of walk you through this. Basically, you can do this soap opera sequence over a lot longer period of time. You can do it over 5 emails or 10 emails, or I've seen people do it over like 30 or 40 emails. But the reality is I think that you can do a very good job in just 3 emails. So I'm going to show you guys kind of how to do that. And then after we've written these soap opera sequences, then you're going to be able to go back and plug them back into your autoresponder that we set up on day number 6. Okay, so that's kind of the game plan right now. So basically, I'm going to show you. First off, there's my awesome comic I found about soap operas. I hope it makes you laugh just a little bit. All right, now what I'm going to do is basically in this process, again, my goal is somebody's going to come. They're going to fill out my squeeze page, right? Put their name and the email address in. They click submit. And now they're usually taking something right here that I'm gonna be selling them, right? Some kind of sales video or sales letter or webinar, something that I'm gonna try to make some money from. But simultaneously, at the same time, they're being added to this email autoresponder sequence. And so they're getting an email right here. It's gonna tell them something. An email right here. It's gonna tell them something. And then an email right here. That's gonna tell them something. Now, the goal of these 3 emails, again, is to introduce them to the attractive character and to get them interested and engaged in your story, but also is to push people back here to this primary offer. Okay? So that's kind of one of the sub-goals. So what I'm going to do is somebody just opted in, they saw this thing, they kind of got introduced to it, now I'm going to get this email sent to them. Now, my very first email, the goal of this very first email is to, I'm going to write these right here, HD, high drama. Okay, your first email, it needs to start your story at the peak of high drama. Now, I learned this originally from one of my friends and business partners and mentors. His name's Dagan Smith, and he really spent like a whole, almost like 2 years studying storytelling. And he introduced me to some amazing storytellers, read some amazing books. And one of the big takeaways I got from him after kind of learning all this stuff was you always want to start a story at the point of high drama. He says if you start a story boring, guess what? People aren't going to listen very long, right? So you got to find the peak of high drama, and that's where you start the story. Okay, so I was thinking about different movies, and one of the movies that pops out to me, because I remember watching this when I was younger, was a movie called Cliffhanger with Sylvester Stallone. If you remember this movie, if you saw it, the movie starts where they're basically these guys that have over a big huge canyon. They have a big huge like zip line across the top, and they go out there and they're going across this zip line trying to get to the other side of the canyon, and they're all on this thing. All of a sudden, one of the girls, her harness sort of breaks, and it starts falling, and they try to capture her, and they grab her hand, and they're fighting to hold her on, and this whole intense scene's going on for about a minute or two, and all of a sudden, she slips out of their hands, and she falls to her death. And I remember watching that when I was younger, and my hands were sweating. I was like freaked out, and that scene kind of ends, and then boom, it starts the next scene. And you're just like, what in the world just happened? And you're so sucked into it now because they started at a point of high drama. Okay? You know those movies you watch and it takes a while to get into? And if you're watching at home, you just would have turned it off, but you're sitting in the movie theater and eventually it gets good. Okay, I'm not talking about that kind of thing. I'm talking about the thing where you walk in the theater, the first scene happens, when you're done, you're like, wow, what in the world just happened? Okay? So the first email, you got to figure out your story. You remember we talked about your backstory? What point of this backstory is the point of high drama? The part that's most exciting, the most interesting, that's going to grab people and just suck them in very, very quickly. I found this email from one of my friends. His name's Greg Davis, and this was his soap opera sequence. And I just want you I'm going to read to you guys day number 1 of his email, and tell me if this doesn't evoke some emotion. Okay, at the point of high drama. So email subject line was betrayal, the day I hurt my wife. Okay, isn't that just first off like that subject line? Or you're like, wow, what just happened? Then here's the email. My wife was looking at me with tears streaming down her face. I had never seen her this hurt, this angry. How could you do this to me? She screamed as she waved the evidence in my face. There was a huge lump in my throat. There's nothing I could say. We had gone through our share of ups and downs in our marriage, but I'd never seen her so hurt and so angry. The evidence was a Citibank credit card statement. I knew that if she saw it was game over. So I had been racing to the mailbox every day to get to the bill before she did. But on this day, she beat me to the mailbox, and of all days, this was the day when the bill came. Dang, when I walked through the door and saw the open Citibank's envelope on my table, my heart sank. She had seen it. She knew the secret had been desperately trying to keep for almost 2 months. I trusted you, she said softly as she walked into the room, and you betrayed me. You betrayed my trust. How could you do this to me? Her voice started getting louder. She was shaking. How could you do this to me? I dreaded her finding out. I knew that she would be very upset, but I never thought it would hit her this hard. No, I didn't cheat on her, at least not in the adulterous sense. In my desperation to make money online, I had intercepted a new credit card sent to my wife. The card had a $25,000 limit. In less than 2 months, I'd maxed it out buying traffic. And I already maxed out all my other cards trying to make AdWords work. And I knew that if I asked her, she would have said no. And I work for a huge financial services company. Don't you know they check your credit? She was yelling now. I have to maintain good credit to maintain my job. We don't have the money to pay this. I had the best intentions. I knew that if I stuck with the internet marketing, I'd make my family financially free. Anyway, I'm not gonna keep reading, but you see how that this is the point of emotional drama? Walking in and seeing your wife, tears down her face. When you tell a story, don't start with, hey, so I found this credit card statement for my wife. I hid it. And I started going and buying AdWords. And after 2 or 3 months, I maxed out the credit cards. And then I remember one day I came home and boom, my wife was there with tears. Okay, that's the peak of the place of high drama. So you start with that. Okay, so you start that part of your story, and then you kind of go back through and you tell the rest of the story. Okay, and again, I'm not going to read the whole thing. If you pause the video, I'm sure you can go and read it if you want. But notice one thing down here. Notice right when the story starts ending, he says, basically, hopefully I can get some help out there much quicker. And then stops and says, stay tuned tomorrow for Chapter 2, Mr. Negative, $500 per day. Boom. What did he just do right here? Okay. This is what soap operas do. If you guys watch soap operas, or you watch reality shows, or you watch TV shows before the news, what is this thing right here? This is a hook, right? They say, wait, tonight at News at 10, learn about the 3-headed dog that can backflip off diving boards, right? And you're like, what, a 3-headed dog? I need to watch the news now. Okay, or right before soap opera, right before commercials, they cut to some big thing, or the reality show. Our favorite show, unfortunately, is The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. And every single time before a commercial, Chris Harrison comes up and says, "Up next," and shows the most exciting part of the next segment. And then it cuts to commercial, and you're like, "Oh, I have to watch through the commercial because I need to find out this next thing." All right, that's what we're doing here in this email. We're setting a soap opera sequence where we're dragging them to day number 2. Okay, so day number 1 is I'm starting my story, and I'm telling it from the point of high drama. I get them excited, I'm getting them hooked, and I stop and say, "Hey, so tomorrow I'll tell you the rest of the story." And they're like, "What? What's the next day? What's the next thing?" And you don't let them know. You wait till tomorrow. Okay, so that's day number 1, you guys. The point of high drama. Does that make sense? Okay, now day number 2, this is where we come back to your BS. Not really your BS. This is your backstory. Okay, so again, you told them the point of high drama, you got them hooked. Now you come back, and now let me tell you the backstory, how I got to the point of high drama. Okay, now I start coming back and say, okay, I got to this point because I did this, and I kind of start filling in the gaps of how I got to that point. Okay, have you guys ever seen the episode of Seinfeld where basically the very opening scene was the end of the show? It was really kind of brilliantly done. And the second scene was the second to last show. And so you start seeing this thing, and by the end of the movie, all of a sudden it all makes sense in the show because you've seen the very opening scene. And it was kind of a really cool thing. But this is kind of the same thing. Like, they've seen now the point of high drama. They saw, with Greg, they saw his wife crying and all this kind of stuff. Now it's like, how did I get there? Let me tell you the backstory about how I got here. Okay, if you remember we talked about the attractive character, this is really where you're basically meeting them where they're at. You're saying, look, I was just like you, same situation you were in, and this is the path I took, and I went along this path right here, and all these things were happening, and boom, here's where I hit the point of high drama. You guys saw this. Okay, you share this stuff with them, and you're going through, and so you're telling your backstory, and your goal of your backstory is to walk you into a wall. Okay, again, this process, I'm going to give Dagan 100% credit. I learned this stuff all from Dagan, but your backstory should lead to some kind of wall. Okay, so your wall is like, what's the wall? Like, I ran out of money, or I couldn't lose weight, I tried everything, or I couldn't, whatever. There's some wall you hit right here. Okay, so in email number 2, you're telling your backstory, and boom, you hit this wall. Okay, now after you hit this wall, somehow you've got to break free and get to email number 3, which is your epiphany. Okay, I'll just put E for epiphany. So email number 2, again, it's your backstory that leads them to the wall. In the wall, you start talking about, like, I hit this wall, I couldn't get past this wall, I was blocked, I couldn't figure the next step, and that's when it hit me. That's when I realized this, or that's the day I got the email that changed my life, or that's the day that something happened, right? Something you allude. So you tell your backstory, you hit this wall, then you allude to this epiphany, but you don't tell them what it is, and that's where you set your next hook. Tomorrow I'm going to tell you what was in that email. Tomorrow I'm going to tell you what it was my friend told me that helped me understand how this whole thing worked. Tomorrow I'm going to tell you what my wife said that changed everything. Whatever it is. Okay, your epiphany. And that's how you set email number 2. Okay. Do you guys see how now this process, someone opens email number 1 and they get sucked into this drama, then they hear the backstory, now they're best friends with the attractive character, and the attractive character has met them where they're at, has taken them through this path all the way up till boom, they've hit this wall, and they've alluded to the fact that they had this epiphany that changed everything for them, and then they wait till day number 3. Now let me share with you the epiphany. The epiphany is this. Boom. And email number 3 is the epiphany. And usually the epiphany, just so you guys know, 99% of the time your epiphany is leading back to whatever this is back here. The epiphany I had is that I needed to build a list, and that's what I learned inside .com Secret Sex. My epiphany was I needed my own high-ticket product that I could sell, and that's how I found the Empower Network. My big epiphany was I needed to figure out a way I could replace myself, and that's when I found outsource or replaceyourself.com or whatever it is. So your big epiphany is somehow tying back to whatever your ultimate solution is, which is the product you're selling right here. Okay? And that's kind of how the soap opera works, you guys. Email 1 pulls email number 2. Email number 2 pulls email number 3. Email number 3 is leading people back to the ultimate solution. Okay? And that's how we structure our soap opera sequence. And this right here, you guys, is called the soap opera. Okay? And now again, you guys, some people, and sometimes you can take this, instead of 3 emails, you can do over 10 emails. You can stretch these stories out and really break them out. But I think for most of you guys, I really focus on 3 right now, just because that's how many you need to really capture them, okay, and get them to reintroduce back to this thing right here. Now we send these emails out day after day. Day 1, this one goes out day 1. This is day 2. This one's day 3. You don't gap them and wait them. You need to get people interested while they're still there. Okay. Usually my subject lines of these is like, whatever the story is. So whatever chapter 1 of 3, then chapter 2 of 3, chapter 3 of 3. So they know that it's part of a series, part 1, 2, and 3. And so they start looking anxiously for the next email. Because if they just read 2, they want to find 1 and they want to find 3. If they just read 3, they need 1 and 2. So we're keeping this into like a closed circuit. So email the subject line again, day 1 of 3, day 2 of 3, day 3 of 3, whatever it might be. And that's kind of how it works. Okay. Now, this is the first part of the email process, you guys. The next part of the email process, I'm going to be showing you guys on day number 12. But this is a soap opera sequence part of the process. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you guys how I write this, because I think this is really one of the biggest ahas I had. Is as I'd write the first email, and then I'm like, how do I hook this to the next email? How do I make this whole thing make sense? So what I started doing is I started going like this, and I open up Notepad, so I write my emails. I start over here, and I start day number 1. Okay, I'll start my first one. Then I'll have day 2, day 3. Okay, and I have them all open at the same time, because again, if I'm going to be hooking people and bringing them from this to this and like that, I want to be able to kind of to be able to know what things I need to pull them over here. So I'm going to start my story. So again, my story needs to start in a point of high drama. So it starts with the subject line. The subject line could be, whatever. Let's see, what's my subject line? It's going to be, I don't know, it's just like cool stuff day 1 of 3. Okay, and then my body, high drama. So I start telling story. And you guys, when you're writing your emails, make sure that you're like never more than like one sentence at a time, always having a lot of space. You need a lot of space in email. If there's any big paragraphs, people get overwhelmed. Everything should be very short and very fast. Like if you look back at Greg's, notice like each one's one sentence. Like nothing more than that, just very short. You don't want them to be longer than that. Okay? So you tell a story, whatever it is. And then down here you have your hook to day 2 of 3. Something like to allude to that. Thanks from Russell Brunson. If you want, you can have something like p.s. Don't forget to check out blah. Okay, so like if you, let's say for example, you wanted to promote this in each email. You don't have to. I like to wait till email number 3 to kind of reintroduce it. But you can. I've seen people successfully do it, or in each email they kind of push people back to here. Just kind of up to you. So if you do that though, the reason I'm showing you that is because if you do that, then come back into Click Tracker, and that Click Tracker link you set up. Remember that one that was we set up on day number 4. You take that Click Tracker link to your product, and boom, you put it in right here. PR.com/ whatever it is, cool product, and that way you can track what clicks came from this email. Okay, then I have email number 2 over here, so now I do subject line, cool stuff, day 2 of 3. Okay, and then boom, same thing. Now this is backstory, hit wall, elude. How do you spell elude? Elude to, I think it's elude wrong, but I have no idea. Then I hook to day 3. Thanks, Russell. Boom, and then day number 4 is I show epiphany. This big epiphany I had. Tell the story. Show results. Anything you want to show is kind of about the epiphany, how cool it was. Can't spell right. And then push to call to action, URL. So then boom, this is like your Click Tracker link again. We're pushing people back to buy your primary product. Okay, so boom, I create email number 1, email number 2, email number 3, and then you go, after you've written them out like this, you guys, and you perfect them, you make sure it's all good, and you say, okay, email number 1's cool here, hook to day number 2, now I answer that question over here, then hook day 3, and I get my whole thing written out. Then I go back to my autoresponder, Pure Leverage or Aweber or whatever autoresponder you choose. You go back in there, you just copy this, paste it, copy it, paste it, copy it, and paste it. After you've done that and you've had those emails copied and pasted in and saved, because remember, if you remember back in day number 6, you guys, we set up the autoresponder and we left open 3 days for your 3 soap opera sequences. Now you just gotta go back and copy this in, copy the subject line in, copy the body, subject line body, subject line body. Boom, you save that, and now your email is set to go out. As soon as someone subscribes, they get this email day 1, this email day 2, and this email day 3. Okay, does that make sense, you guys? So that is how you set up your soap opera. Okay, and I hope you guys enjoy this. This is a fun process. Writing your own soap opera can be a lot of fun, and that's kind of the game plan for you guys right now. So that's the next step in the plan. You guys take your attractive character, take your story, everything you've been developing, and boom, email number 1 is your point of high drama, email number 2 is your backstory, email number 3 is your epiphany. Sounds good? Thanks, you guys, and I will talk to you all again tomorrow. And tomorrow we're going to be talking about testing your funnel to make sure this whole thing is actually working. So it'll be exciting.